welcome to Thursday, everyone. Another awesome day of FileMaker training. We're here at fmtraining.tv where we do awesome training, or sometimes you train us, which is also good. Either way, there's training going one way or the other. I want to start this conversation off briefly, but I've got contributing folks here to help with, and this is the considerations of when to rebuild your FileMaker solution. We have a bunch of guest stars with us today. We've got Nick Hunter's here, Calvin's here, and we also have who? Ed, Margaret? Is Ed here today?
Yes, Ed Burkle from our lovely live stream viewership. Hey, welcome.
So happy to be here.
So happy to be there. I'm glad you're here, Ed. So feel free to speak up a little bit so people can hear you a little bit louder. But Ed, this was Ed's idea of a topic, and I think it's a good topic. Not a technical topic. Tomorrow is an open Q&A day. So before we get going fully, let me just cover the upcoming broadcast schedule here. I'm going to press the button here. In fact, there's Ed's smiling face up there. Broadcast schedule today is when to rebuild the database. These are considerations you need to think about. And then we also want to talk about open Q&A tomorrow. So I'm bringing Jacob Taylor, one of our server guys, tomorrow. He'll be around to help us with that conversation. And then we're going to be Monday talking about the actual cost of FileMaker. And I think there's some overlap between today and Monday a little bit, because costs and finances are always kind of a consideration in terms of building a solution, right? Or rebuilding a solution. Choosing to build one that's already been built, building it a second time. And then Tuesday, next week, we've got the basics of PCI compliance. Basically, it has to do with credit card processing and protecting that user identifiable data, etc., protecting that information. Interesting conversation. Then next week we've got Dr. Watson. It's not Dr. Watson. He said it's Hal Watson. I have to say it with a German accent. Hal Watson, right? So Herr Watson will be there. That'll be very awesome. Looking forward to that as well. So once again, we continue to involve you, the viewers, the people who are out there. We greatly appreciate your support. Lastly, as a reminder, while this training is totally free, this is all part of fmtraining.tv. So if you're here at fmtraining.tv, you can see the live stream upcoming schedule button. This is live data out of a FileMaker database, feeding a web page in real time. Ooh, we eat our own dog food here. So as a reminder, we have bundles here. So if you don't want to have it rough, you want to have a smooth process of learning FileMaker, you need to purchase our training. It just is, okay? If you don't purchase training, it's going to be rough in bed for you. It's going to be very difficult. So if you want some smoothness, you want the FileMaker training. Right, Nick?
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially the one where I am in.
Especially the videos when I'm in them. That's great. And there are a bunch of videos with him in there, right? So, of course, that's good. So it's always Nick. Nick is in there, and he's got a sense of humor, which is great. So I'm going to press the button here. So we have a bunch of people here at the top of the screen. It's kind of hard to see. I'm going to zoom in here. So I've got Ed there. That's Ed. He's got a headset on. Hi, Ed. How are you? There's Ed.
Excellent.
And then so let's start off by this was let me ask the question, Ed. Are you thinking about right now needing to rebuild a solution? Why did this topic come up?
Well, as we've gone through the last 12, 15 months, whatever it's been, of the daily broadcast, and I've started picking up more things along the line, I'm deciding that since my primary database started life in nutshell, somebody picked Nick up off the floor.
Yeah.
And before there was even the ability to relate one file to another, that it works pretty well, I think, but I'm sure it could be a lot leaner and work a lot better.
Okay. Well, that's a good point. So I'm going to pick it up and talk this a little bit. Nick, I want you and Calvin to jump in here. Ed, if you have a question along the way, I want you to kind of feel free to kick that out to us. And then, so the question is, when do you rebuild a solution, right? And Nick had some good comments on this. Calvin, you guys are going to have to speak up when we run into something you want to talk about. And I kind of threw the following kind of little slide deck together, kind of the decision-making process that comes into it. But for me, first off, before we can even think about rebuilding, we assume that we have a solution that's in use. somehow the customer's using a solution and it does something valuable, does something they need to have done, right? And the second part of this is that the solution needs some sort of improvements, right? Either it needs to go faster or it's missing some capability, and you need to improve it, right? Now, as fun as this is, if you have a solution that has value and it's working great and it doesn't need any improvements, then while Nick is fantastic and the training is exceptional, rebuilding it just to rebuild it, I guess it's fine if you have nothing to do. But I would, most of the time is that people, if it works, if something ain't broke, leave it alone, right? There's that old line, right? If it ain't broke, it doesn't, you don't need to fix it if it's not broke, right? And so you have to establish that there's something broke that you need to work on. And then of course you run into this conversation of, what you might want to rebuild. And the number one thing that comes up, at least with me, with the people that I interact with, and Nick, maybe it's different for you, but the number one question is people say, well, we might want to rebuild it. And you go, why? It says, normally what it is someone has they have discovered themselves it's really hard to implement a fix. Like they don't understand how to code the fix or implement the fix. And therefore, it might be easier just to redesign it or rebuild it because they understand it better, right? And typically, this is a function of bad documentation or non-commenting a solution for the people that come behind you. The other part of this is that you have a developer who's asked to do the job, a new developer that's asked to do the job, and they don't have any pre-existing knowledge of the solution. They're not the original builder, right? And the original builder could be hit by a bus. We've seen that happen. They're unavailable. Maybe they're too expensive. You don't want to hire them anymore. And so you run these issues. So things you have to think about are limited organizational knowledge, right? Does the organization, because so everyone understands, we run into this almost every day at RCC. We have a customer, for example, is a biotech company in the Bay Area. And if they're in biotech in the Bay Area, they're making money hand over fist, trust me. And they are using a solution that's based on FileMaker 5 and 6. It was upgraded to FileMaker, the modern version of FileMaker, only from the standpoint that you drag and drop it, but it's designed with FileMaker 5 and 6 technology. And it kind of keeps working, right? And so as a result, they don't really want to improve and really want to work on it because they don't want to allocate the budget for it, right? They want to... for them, it's this idea of kicking the can down the road, because if you completely rebuild it, they're looking at probably several $100,000 on the low end and maybe more like $500,000 to rebuild it. And that's why they don't want to do that, except that they keep kicking this can down the road, right? Rebuilding it is always going to be typically in the near term way more expensive. In the short term, if you just patch a little duct tape on there and patch it a little more, just patch it a little more, baby, just patch it up a little more. Then you're saving money, you're saving time in the near term, but long term you're going to be spending more money. These people have wasted a tremendous amount of money because we're using a very inefficient design, very inefficient system, right? And so this whole idea of kicking the can down the road, right? And kicking it down the road, because a quick patch is always quick and easy, right? So Nick, this is where I want to involve you in the conversation. Thoughts about quick now, or do you want to invest now and save,
Exactly. So exactly. Okay. The last 2 days I was thinking about this, this is one day. I have a quick story. One day I was talking to somebody, and he told me, "Oh, okay, I don't want to invest thousands in my solution." And later on in the conversation, the guy admits the truth, right? Telling me that, oh, by the way, without this solution, I'm out of business. So in the same conversation, we had somebody that tell me, I don't want to invest 1 cent in the solution, or very few, but this solution, without this solution, I'm out of business. So that means today we need to, nowadays, more than ever, a solution, your custom solution, your custom software is the most added value of your company. It's part of the asset of your company. That means if one day you want to sell the company, it will be part of the asset of the company. You will tell the guy that will buy your company, you will say, hey, by the way, I have a super efficient software tailored, customized for my job. Okay, so this is a huge added value. Okay, so you need to think about this when you think about the value, like you said, what the value, and rebuild a solution is like kind of rebuild a house or rebuild a building. It's the same thing. It adds the same value. That means it's an investment in the future. It's not a waste of money. So you have many ways to consider this. You can come with a budget and say, okay, that will cost me, I don't know, 60 grand. Okay, 60 grand or say 70 grand. But this is the wrong way to think about this. Today, your solution will never be finished because today our solution, our custom solution, are so important in our daily lives, especially the post-COVID life, where people working from home, remote, on server, on the cloud, now is more than ever a necessity. You cannot come with, it's not working on cloud. You know what I mean? So you need cloud, server, remote. You need those. It's mandatory now, the post-COVID era. So let me finish this. And what you need to think about this before we have the finished good, you were buying FileMaker a box. You were buying a FileMaker box like a FileMaker 4. You had a box with the floppies, and you had a software. Now you don't do this. FileMaker costs you this amount of money every year. You need to think about your solution exactly the same thing. Like, for example, I was telling that to one of my customers last week, and I said, okay, don't think that your solution will be ever finished. It will never be finished. What you need to think is, Nick Hunter costs me X amount of money every month. This is what is like paying the rent, paying the lights, paying your utilities. Is exactly the same thing. So that is a way to think solution nowadays. So what do you thought on this?
I like that. I like that a lot, and we've seen that a lot with people. I actually had I'll rip my screen up here a little bit, but it was funny. We have had customers who said, "Oh, I'm retiring in 6 months or 8 months," and they're the owners of the company, right? And they don't want to put the money into, and the business is going to keep going. They're selling it to someone. And so sometimes people see this as intellectual property, it's value of the company, it's specific to their organization. And then sometimes they're like, they're going to buy this company and whatever, and I don't want to worry about it. And they're literally barely, not even fixing it, just barely a little bit of duct tape, a little masking tape on the fix. Just so I understand it's basically the free country, people do this. You're not required to do this. But you have to look at what your goal is at the end of the day. If you've got any sort of time left in your organization where you're going to have to be there, you might want to get it fixed. Keep in mind, this comes up, it's going to be part of the Monday conversation, but what is the cost of FileMaker? Well, if you spend X number of dollars on FileMaker, say you spend the equivalent of, say, $50,000 of money, time, labor, your personal time, whatever it is, 50 hours, 500 hours, 1,000 hours. You're going to spend about 10% of that every year doing basic maintenance to keeping it up to date. Never mind a lot of improvements, just keeping it up to date with, new, like going from version 17 to 18 to 19, or maybe you go every other version. You go 17 to 19, for example. These are all important things to think about. A lot of people don't do that investment. And so then this issue of rebuilding becomes more of a problem, right? They don't reinvest along the way. They're still using techniques from FileMaker 5 or 6. They've never made little improvements along the way. So now they've got a real problem, and then, they need to rebuild, and they don't want to write the check to do that, which I get. No one wants to spend the money, but what are you going to do, right? Nick, do you feel sorry for them if they don't spend, reinvest? I know you don't.
I mean, you have to think many things when you have a solution. A solution is intimate between you, as a owner, the decision maker, okay? You, the developer, your business, your users. It's an intimate kind of a relationship between those four people. So always you need to have all those very tied to each other. You cannot say, "Oh, I don't care about my users. If they don't like it, they don't like it." No, it's not good. Or, "Oh, I don't care if it doesn't fit my business anymore. I'm fixing with Excel, or it's not good, right? So you need something. You need your solution, your custom solution, to be always tight and in sync with all your users, business. Okay. The biggest problem that you encounter today, if you need to rebuild the solution, it's because yes, you let it die, you let it go, you didn't invest, you didn't think about the future, and you wait until the FileMaker 5.0 doesn't work in your computer to do something. Okay, so you wait until the last minute. So this is a bad solution. It's a bad way to think this. So now the other reason you need to rebuild something, I mean, not upgrade, rebuild, is because you keep changing the developer. So you start with one company, with one guy, or you start yourself, then you hire a guy that didn't do a good job, and you hire another guy that didn't do a good job, and you hire another guy that didn't do a good job, and then you got kind of like a dish made by 4 different chefs, completely different, and you mix kind of Chinese food with German food, and it's something that you can, So so it's you can eat it. So, and then you need to rebuild it. So now when you decided to rebuild something, what you need to do is to feel extremely comfortable with your developer, because you will have a long-term relationship with them. So you need to make sure that you and your developer can be anybody. You and your developer to have a very to understand yourself, the both of you, to be in sync, to be as a customer, you need to be confident, and as a developer, you need to have you need to desire doing it, because sometimes I'm telling people, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I'm not interested. So I won't put myself, I won't put my soul in the development. So I will do something that I don't like. I don't want to do it. So it's the same on both ways. The developer need to feel very comfortable with the customer, and the customer need to feel extremely comfortable with the developer. When you have a relationship like this, you can go and rebuild it.
That's a good one, Calvin. You're there. You're just here for your good looks. You want to jump in on this?
Yeah. So one thing when I started thinking about this is that I actually was thinking about it kind of the opposite: when not to rebuild from the ground up.
Which is a valid conversation too.
Valid conversation.
Yeah. And so I was in a meeting with a client, and they said they hated their app and they didn't want to use it. They wanted to replace it. They wanted something different. They wanted to use FM Starting Point. But then, just like Nick was saying, this was mission critical to their business. They couldn't do without it. Their warehouse workers knew how it worked and what it did. And FM Starting Point had almost none of the features that they needed. And in the conversation with them, we eventually figured out that really the problem was they didn't like the user interface. And it was all the screens looked like they were print screens that you would print out instead of having a nice, rich interface. So what we ended up doing in that case was they did want to invest, but we didn't necessarily need to rebuild the whole thing. But we did rebuild every one of the layouts and gave it. We took some elements from FM Starting Point and applied that to their app. So they were able to save money using the same solution, but they did get a better app that filled their need and had a great front end.
Yeah, Nick. So they kind of a reskinning of it a little bit to a degree, right?
Okay. So that is also something that at RCC we have expert for that. No doubts. The expert of preventing to a complete rebuild, because a complete rebuild, I never do that. I never completely rebuild something. I always reuse the basic foundation of an existing file So pretty much I keep the basic tables and the basic fields, and I but the relationship, the schema completely go away. The layout, the scripts, everything go away. But we never restart from scratch unless it's a big mess. But we never restart from scratch, and or the files so damaged that it's better not to touch it. So, but you're right, Kelvin. Sometime we can do a fix of the FM starting point is a good example. We never rebuilt it, and look how it looks different from the version 3 to the version of today and the future version. How different it looks like, and how different it behaves. But we never rebuilt it, right? But we kept it updated. We fix it. We replace it. We improve it. So it's a good example. And most of the time, what is missing in a solution, like you said, is a UI. Okay, and obviously at RCC we have all the best people for that. So sometimes it's great to just ask the right people and to say, hey, can we just, like for example, I am from Monaco, just a little. What they do over there in Monaco, and it's they cannot destroy buildings. They can't, because they are classified historical, right? So you can destroy them. It's impossible to destroy them. But what they do, they keep all the exterior, and inside they destroy everything and they rebuild everything the inside, but outside it looks exactly the same, right? So we can do exactly the same thing, like completely keep the box, but inside completely rebuild it. So we can do both. We can keep the box and rebuild on top of it, or we can keep the exterior and rebuild the inside. We can do both.
Yeah, so it's a good point. And I wanted before I go to Labo 404's conversation. Well, Ruben says he doesn't want to be intimate with his boss. All right, so yeah, I knew that would come up. Nick's interpretation of intimate could be misinterpreted as intimate. Is it intimate?
Professionally.
Professionally intimate. Hey, baby. Right. So all right, so real quick, so Larry is around, and this is kind of an Ed conversation. I'm going to kind of invite Ed back in here, but I know Larry, one of our Marines who works in kind of not really Major League Baseball, but it's like the AAA baseball, I guess, something like that. It's what it's the highest level of baseball without being a professional. Well, they're paid, but they're not paid much, right? It's the AAA ball. From there, you go to the Major League Baseball team, right? And so has a solution that kind of does managing for the park and all the things that go on around each of the games and things like that. And he's been looking at rebuilding it. One of the considerations is that you could have a solution that visually, even if it's ugly, people can get used to it. They can get used to ugly, and they expect it to work a certain way. Even at RCC, sometimes it happens. We have a solution called Business Commander, and some engineers hate using it, but everyone's kind of used to it, so we're afraid to rebuild it because it's a lot of money, and everyone's already kind of mostly using it. But then Larry the other day I was talking to him, and he was rebuilding it because he wanted to use Anchor Buoy. That gives you huge performance improvements, right? Helps you understand the solution. And so he was looking at a rebuild because he wanted better performance and better, I guess, understanding of it, right? If someone uses Anchor Buoy and you walk in to support them and you've never built the solution, you fundamentally understand the major modules. You understand there's a layout attached to that anchor, and you know that everything there on the side of it is supported to the buoy. We've talked about this at great length in the live streams. And so that was an important thing for Larry. Larry, how is it going on that end of thing? How goes it there, right, with this? Tell us now, or do we want to call him? And then Ed, on your side, is Anchor Buoy or is performance part of your conversation? What is causing you to think about, the redesign maybe, right?
Well, the Anchor Buoy is part of it. Right now, like I said, everything started back when it was all flat files.
Oh yeah, that's
We couldn't even relate to one another.
Correct.
As FileMaker has moved along, we have started relating one file to another. For example, my primary app is for tracking building and fire permits.
Okay.
So for every permit, there's X number of inspections. Inspections are in a totally separate file
Okay.
instead of being a table within the permit data.
Right. Right.
And I've added since we've gotten the add-ons for notes and attachments. I've updated both the permit data and the inspection logs so that we can have pictures and documents and different things attached. But it's all
It's multi-file. It's multi-file. So this gets back to something that was it Ruben? No, Labo just mentioned this on Discord over here. So I'm gonna bring this up briefly over here on Discord and scroll down. So I'm gonna cover part of your face here, Ed. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
And the conversation basically was this idea that being able to copy schema, right? So once again, this is kind of part of this technology that's coming. It's why we have add-ons. We've had this conversation, emergency Star Trek transporter, ripping pieces out of a FileMaker solution and moving them. And I think we're right on the edge of that. The Star Trek transporter, I think, could be probably used to help consolidate your solution, but I don't know how much work would be involved in it. But the whole idea, one of the things is that when we built Starting Point, we wanted a single file solution, not a multi-file solution, because everyone's kind of used to single file solutions, but back in the old day, every table was a file. And so your solution, say Starting Point's 33 tables, you'd have a folder or directory and it'd have 33 FMP7 files or FMP3 files or FP whatever files, right? And so you'd have 20 or 30 of them in there, and all those files together constitute one solution. So for you to manage and do everything and manage security, etc., there's security credentials for each file becomes a nightmare. So consolidating it together makes it much more supportable. So that's what Larry's looking at. Would you want to rebuild it? I don't know, Larry. I think you could probably pick like one file and go through the process of trying to create it as an add-on, build it as an add-on. We talked about that with the Star Trek transporter, and then dragging that in there and trying to adjust the wiring so it works with that still. That might be a way to go. But that would be an interesting conversation, using that as a tool. Calvin, you have any thoughts on that? That was really kind of a Jacob conversation, but
yeah. So I had a client one time that was they would need to move from a multi-file solution that was built in FileMaker 7 or something like that, and we were moving to FileMaker 11, and and when we looked at what they had, we realized that about 95% of what they needed was an FM Starting Point. So in their case, we just imported everything to FM Starting Point and made those adjustments. And now they're still using that FM Starting Point app from FileMaker 11. If they wanted to add a lot of new features now, I'd probably have them do the same thing, because it's the newest FM Starting Point, which has the better design, and it's not using classic themes. Next time they need a bunch of changes, I would import everything into the newest FM Starting Point and make those adjustments. If we're talking about something that there's not a replacement for, and we wanted to try using the add-on feature to consolidate those, it's a really interesting idea, because you can bring all of that structure into whatever file you determine is your center, but although that's going to be in there, the original file is not going to know how it's connected. So we're going to have to go through there and match up all of those
reconnect stuff,
tables. Yeah, reconnect.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing. But that's an excellent point, Ed. And once again, I'd kind of forgotten about file consolidation. It was a thing that we used to deal with a lot, say 15 years ago, and maybe not so much anymore. Really good point. So yeah, so it'd be And once again, this gets back into budgets and things like that. And I'm not telling Ed to go spend money, but yeah, I mean, there are people who can help you with that if you want help. Larry's looking at a different scenario. This is from the baseball. We're talking about the AAA baseball solution. Larry, one of our Marines, he goes, first issue is changing my thinking. He's been building apps from 12 years ago. He loves Anchor Buoy. And so what Larry is doing a, if you look at his comments here, if I go over here to Discord, what you're seeing is comments here are essentially that he's keeping the user interface more or less the same, right? He's fixing the guts of it. So he's reorganizing the pieces that are slow, that make it slow. Now, of course, a good user interface is great, but if the guts of it are very fundamentally like a spider diagram, you're going to have performance issues with that. So suggestions for improving the under the hood is using Anchor Buoy, removing the redundancy of it, also using base elements to find unused elements, right? So base elements is a product. I actually have to go renew my license for this because one of my folks was pointing out that my license, my annual license expired like a month or two ago. And I haven't used it too much then, but as we get close to doing starting point, we want to make sure the new starting point, it's very clean. We don't have any unused elements. And this product allows you to identify the things that you're not using and to kind of go and remove them. Remove objects, elements, fields, layouts that are not being referenced, that are not in use, right? So, yeah, so once again, everyone has a different need. This one here, he likes the interface, but under the hood, it's probably slow and it's ugly and messy, and he's doing it under the hood. He's re-engine. You know, the car is beautiful, it's painted nice, but the engine is a 4-cylinder piece of crap, right? So he's going to put a new engine in it, right? And then, of course, Ed's talking about a solution that more or less is working, except that it's structurally spread across multiple files, a different problem that you have to tackle, right? And then Nick, of course, tackles fundamentals of good design, which leads to good user happiness, good user satisfaction, UI and UX together, right? Nick, that's your thing. Yeah, so any additional comments on this? It looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, everything's great, but it's this important, you know?
It's the money,
so the
money part of it, yeah.
So that's why when you start something like this, you need to stop thinking I have 50K, 60K, or 70K budget. Stop thinking about this, because if you do, you will never do it. Never. And so what you need to do is to think like, what is my monthly budget on this? Okay, what is my monthly budget? So it's like, you know, it's like renting. You rent something. You no longer buy. You rent it. Okay, so it changed fundamentally everything, because it makes you feel like, okay, for some time I will have, you know, I'm going to build something, but after that I will at one point I will be using it, the new version. So when you rebuild something, here you need to think about this. And I talked to somebody, I hope a future customer, recently. So when you rebuild something, you need to think about this. What do I need to start working with it? When can I start working with the new solution? Okay. So you need to evaluate. You need to make sure you have on the table, on phase one, what you need to work with it. And then you have phase two, when you start adding things that you need, but it wasn't necessary on the phase one. And then you have phase three, phase four. But you never stop. So you file with this way of thinking or budgeting. Your file will never get obsolete, because you will always be working on it. You will always be updating it, improving it. You will change things, because you will see that after 6 months of usage, we need to change that because it's not really working the way I thought, or we can do something better, or whatever you can find. But you will always go and always improve, and so it will never be finished, never.
Right.
So that's why I think this way of budgeting, it's a good. It's nowadays it's the way to think this. I think.
I agree. I think obviously if you're in a heavy duty development stage or build mode, that you're going to probably spend more per month. But then it'll kind of go more into what we call maintenance mode. I mean, some of you work with Nick and you understand there's kind of a maintenance mode for your stuff. Like Scott, they'll be busier with Scott or less with Scott, things like that. Jack, go ahead, Nick.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not. But as a developer, and this is great. I tell you what. I tell you, you get a lot of benefit of this, because you have your developer always the hands on the engine, the hand under the hood. I mean, I will, for example, with Scott, it's the second year. The first, we are entering the third year of working with him. Okay, the third year. So, and I don't forget his file. I know his file. Imagine that I don't work for Scott for 4 years, 3 years, and he asked me something right now. I didn't work for him for 3 years. I will forget completely. So, if you keep your developers always in the in the move of your file, the developer will never forget about it. So you will get much more out of your developer if you keep him working like 5 hours, 10 hours a month, like, or fix this, or I want a button for that. So always the developer is inside this. Now, what you need, another good benefit of keeping always the same developer is that you will have something that will be homogeneous, okay? Because the same developer won't change dramatically his way of thinking, unless he was so bad before and watch our webinars and then become very good.
That does happen. But yeah.
But no, I mean, it's important that if you keep the same guy always, you will keep, and you will have a kind of I know I don't remember who doesn't like the word, but you have kind of intimacy with the guy. Okay, I don't know how.
It's Ruben. Ruben doesn't want to be intimate with his boss.
I don't know how. What word I can use? What another word I can use? Intimacy, right? This is a
you
word,
keep
right?
going.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay. So no, because I don't want to be slippery here. So it's very important. This. So the way of thinking of budgeting, the way of thinking how to select your developer, keeping the developer, keep your file on the move always, never let it sleeping or die. So those are fundamental things that you can do right now, and at the end you will save a ton of money. At the end, it will save you a ton of money.
Yeah, because that's one thing after about 6 months, developers tend to forget what they've done for you. It's just a function of life because they're busy. And
3 weeks, 4 weeks, you forget.
Yeah,
no, but it's true.
Calvin.
And it's good keeping up with the file because, like Nick said, if you don't have your developer in there, and we forget how things work, we forget how we built something. And just like you said, it could be 6 months later or maybe a month later. But what's also good, I've seen one app that I was working on. I think I was the fourth developer on it, and you could see how it changed for each person had their little different way of doing it. And I tried to clean it up and go from a spider diagram to a anchor buoy. But if they had kept with the same person, it would have saved time.
All right, cool. Ed, you're there. Questions that you have, thoughts about your topic? This is your topic. We're here because it's your fault for bringing this topic to us. So we want to thank you and also blame you at the same time. So,
well, I'm pretty well used to that with what I do, but yeah, I think one of the things I've gotten out of the discussion thus far is that UI is probably my biggest concern. Like I said, we've started from flat files where you'd have a layout for this, a layout for that, And then we got buttons to where we could switch to the layouts. Now we have tabs and slide panels, and the primary file has 9 tabs.
Well, that might be okay.
Right.
It's bad when you have a row of tabs and then another row below that row and another row below that row, and you have 3 rows. Then Nick goes over there drinking liquor directly, whiskey or whatever. Nick, what do you drink? Like rum or something?
So,
No, drink Grand Marnier.
But well,
Grand
then,
Marnier.
what's
You
your
don't know Grand Marnier?
what is your plan, Ed, for dealing with this? Or are you just kind of slowly working along? What is your strategy? Do you have a strategy, or should I even ask you this question? Right? I mean, I'm putting you on the spot, but
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been kicking around the idea of taking starting point and working from there and seeing if I can kind of mold
I would try
what I
to.
got into that,
Yeah.
because you've got invoices. Invoices equals permits. Invoice line items equals inspections. So
You know what I would almost do is think about like a project. We have a projects module in FM Starting Point, like it's projects or jobs. I would think that's almost along, because I did 4 years with Cal Fire,
Well.
so I kind of did inspections and stuff like that,
yeah,
wildland inspections. And so I'm thinking that for a permit would be a project, and then you'd have
Right.
invoices that are related to that, which are your,
individual permits.
well, yeah.
Interior finish, sprinklers, fire alarms.
Yeah, because because basically your top of your relational organization there is a location, right? It's a location. Is that how it works? Kind of building a location.
Kind of, but yeah, a project is like, I'm sitting here looking at one, Quest Diagnostics. I'm going to do final inspections
Okay.
there tomorrow.
But that's a specific location at Quest Diagnostics, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
It's got an address and a suite number.
perfect.
So I've got an interior finish permit, I've got a sprinkler permit, and I have a fire alarm permit. So I have created a relationship. I created a foreign key to relate all of these together. And then whenever I'm like typically the interior finish permit will come in first. So I have a button that creates a related record. So I can put in new contractor information, new permit type, all of that jazz. And it, by that key field, then I've got a portal that shows me everything related to that permit.
Okay. Well,
So,
you're doing
yeah,
everything
it would
correct. And you're doing everything correct. It's just a matter of how much, because you're actually doing the FileMaker work and you're actually doing inspections too at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
So common that FileMaker developers are doing doing a day job, and then the FileMaker job is like their spare job, right?
Exactly.
Well, all I can tell you is our hats off to you for doing that. Well, are you at a specific agency, Ed? You probably told me this. I probably forgot.
Yes.
Okay.
Melville Fire Protection District, which is in South St. Louis County
Okay.
in
Okay.
Missouri.
Missouri. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've been through Missouri yet. I was over there close. I went
you
through
were-
Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, and Kentucky and Arkansas the other day. So
You taught a FileMaker class here, probably 90,
wow, that goes way back.
99, 2000.
Yeah, sounds right. Wow. Well, we're thinking about doing more of the classroom things, but probably doing them online in a group session. So good. Well, the question is, how do we help Ed? I'm wondering how we can help Ed. We might take that offline, Ed, and help you out a little bit. Find out a way of.
we can do that. Something I want to add before we go away from this, because I have this in my mind and I want to speed it out.
Spit it out.
It's Okay, so now it's the reason why you need to rebuild solution. So let me explain one, for me, the biggest reason, the most interesting one. I had a customer 5 years ago, and so he was doing this. He was collecting data in FileMaker in a solution very bad, and he was exporting that on the Excel. He was sending the Excel file to a lady in Russia. The lady in Russia was collecting all the data, all the photos, and opening everything in PageMaker, and do kind of a report, like a report manually with PageMaker, save it as a PDF, doing a month back and forth for fixing the text, the image not placed in the right place, blah, 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 like this. And at the end, he was getting the report. When I come along and I say, okay, let's rebuild all this and build a big generate report from FileMaker, you click the button and you get your report exported in PDF. What about this, right? So you can imagine the saving of time, on this, right? So that's why it's the saving time is saving money. For example, another example, when you have your process in FileMaker is so complicated that your employees are wasting half or 2/3 of their time using FileMaker because your stuff is so bad. Okay, so it's waste of money. You are paying your employee. Okay, you're paying him or her working on FileMaker when you can just do the right thing and then save your employees so many times that you will get more efficiency. So to get something efficient, accurate, because that's another problem. Efficient, accurate, and easy to use, where your employee is not, doing so many mistakes that she has or he has to do that 2 times, 3 times the same thing. So this is very important. Time saving on using your custom solution should drive your solution, drive your decision the biggest. Okay. What do you think on this?
No, I agree. It's having the vision to understand that. We've had some customers who, in fact, we're reshooting the Bumperman video, talking about, because they spent $30,000-$40,000 on a FileMaker solution, and they recouped that money back. They recouped the money back in 2 months to 3 months. They made the money back, and after that, it was quote unquote free money. But the organizationally, it's a very compelling conversation. It's a great ROI conversation. I love it when it's that clean and easy. Dizzletron 9000 Atlanta checking in. Welcome, Dizzletron from Atlanta. I was just in Atlanta. In addition to base elements, I highly recommend FM Perception. Yeah, that's a tool.
Yeah, that's Vince Menano. That's Vince Menano.
No. FM Perception. No, I think. It's not Vince's. It's the one from used to be Todd Geist. I think Jeremy makes that. Jeremy.
What's the name of the?
Yeah, it's Proof Geist now, or Geist Proof. They kind of combine together, but Geist Proof. So Vince Bonanno does another one called, it used to be Analyzer or whatever it's called, right? I don't use that one so much, but FM Perception is another product that is. It's not perception. FM Perception, I know because I talked to them. David Ramsey is the creator, I think, of FM Perception. And he works with Todd Geist, and Todd Geist kind of sold his company to Ernest Co. I'm not totally clear on that. So they created a new company called Geist Proof or something, right? So anyway, Jeremy, Jeremy.
Inspector Pro. Oh, I remember. Inspector Pro is Vince Menano.
Vince Menano from Waves. Yeah, Waves. Well, it used to be Waves in Motion, and then he went to Beeswax, right? So yeah.
Yeah, so it's Inspector Pro.
Jack the Ripper says, my experience with some employees is that they see that they know how to do the business process, and it keeps them in the job, mostly on Facebook, government, higher education. Yeah. Good comments there from everyone. Well, we greatly appreciate it. We're kind of wrapping up here. We're on landing here. we ought to see talk to like one of our junior engineers and see if we can get some help for Ed. He seems like he needs some help, one of our junior coaches. Because it seems to me like if you wanted to rip out and rebuild and restructure some stuff, a coach could probably do that for you pretty inexpensively, pretty rapidly. But knowing if it's a fire department, they have absolutely no money. It's like the certain businesses that are really hard to sell to is law enforcement and fire service. I know, because fire service, all they want is new engines and new equipment, and the police officers want new patrol cars, new equipment. And no one wants to pay for software, so kind of funny. Okay, so we have two conversations, right? Nathan Schneider says he highly recommends Andy Vasquez, one of our coaches for Ed. Andy's a sharp guy. I like Andy. He's actually afraid of me and talk to me, but nice guy. So if you're looking for a pretty inexpensive FileMaker developer who can bust out some stuff, because he's a coach, right? So sooner or later he'll get promoted. He'll be more expensive. But right now he's pretty cheap still. So that'll be it for now. We greatly appreciate it. Tomorrow is going to be open Q&A. So I'm going to bring Jacob Taylor in. So if you have kind of server-y kind of questions, tomorrow would be a good day to throw server questions at us. We're going to give Nick the day off for next probably a week or so. We might have him bring him in a little bit, but tomorrow is going to be, I'm going to let everyone know on FileMaker server questions. So either cloud questions, FileMaker server, Mac, Windows, or Linux questions. All fair game because Jacob Taylor will be here. Smart guy. So that's it for now. Calvin, anything else? Ed, anything else?
No, sir.
We're good? All right, cool. Well, yeah, we'll get that going. Okay, cool. All right, Calvin, anything else? You good? You're beautiful. All right, I love it. All right, see you, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.